Hello there, and welcome back to Unstuck and Friggin' Fabulous, the podcast for ambitious women ready to ditch doubt, get out of their own way, and create a life that feels bold, beautiful, and fully designed. I am your host, Irene Lidvall, confidence and mindset coach. And today, episode number 64, we are going to talk about something that so many women do without even realizing it. Something that slowly drains their energy, steals their peace, consumes their thoughts, and often leaves them exhausted, resentful, and completely disconnected from themselves. Well, we are talking about the need to fix people. And I am so guilty, or used to be, a real good fixer. I was the one that needed to save everyone, help them, rescue them, carry them, manage them, change them, and, if we're totally honest, control them. Perfect if you're a tour guide, looking after busloads of people, but not in a relationship. So now before we switch off, or you switch off and think, well, Irene, I don't do that. Stay with me, because fixing people doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it looks like constantly giving advice. Sometimes it looks like overhelping, and sometimes it looks like worrying. And sometimes it looks like sacrificing yourself for everyone else, being the victim. And victim can feel really good. And sometimes it looks like spending years trying to get someone to become who you think they should or could be. And that could be a partner, an adult child, a friend, a sibling, an employee, a parent. We all have done this. I've done it. And today we're going to unpack why we do this, the hidden benefits we get from this, and the enormous cost, and how to stop losing yourself in other people's lives, because your life was never meant to be spent managing someone else's. Do you hear that? So why do we try to fix people? Let's start with the big question. Why? Why do intelligent women spend years trying to fix people? Because on the surface, it seems ridiculous, right? We know we can't control other adults. We know people only change when they are ready. And yet, there we are, trying again and again and again. And the truth is, we usually aren't fixing people because of them. We are fixing because of us. So let that sink in a little bit. Because most fixing behavior is actually about managing our own discomfort. If your partner drinks too much, for example, or does anything else too much, you feel uncomfortable. If your friend keeps certain drama every week, you feel uncomfortable. And if someone you love is unhappy, you feel uncomfortable. So what do? We rush in, not necessarily because they asked us to, but because we want relief. We want the anxiety to stop. We want certainty and we want safety. It's all about us, right? We want the problem gone. The fixing becomes a way of calming ourselves, not helping them. And that's a hard truth, isn't it? Because most of us genuinely believe we are being loving and helping, but often we're actually trying to control outcomes. So where does this all start? For many women, this pattern starts early. Maybe you grew up in a chaotic home. Maybe you became the responsible one, the peacemaker, the helper, the good girl, the one who kept everything together. You learn very quickly that your value came from being useful, from solving problems, from taking care of everyone else. And over time, you stopped asking, what do I need? And start asking, what does everybody else need? You became brilliant at reading the room. You could sense tension before anyone spoke. You knew when people were upset. You knew when something was wrong. You became emotionally responsible for everyone. And the problem is, you carried that role into your adulthood. Now, in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond, and you're still carrying people who should be carrying themselves. Still solving problems nobody asked you to solve. Still taking responsibility for things that were never yours. So the secret benefits of fixing people, now let's talk about something most people don't want to admit. There are benefits to fixing people. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, right? Our benefit is purpose. When you're focused on someone else's problems, you don't have to focus on your own. That's uncomfortable, but true. It, if all your energy goes into helping everybody else, you never have to look at the things you are avoiding. Your dreams, your fears, your loneliness, unhappiness, unmet needs. Another benefit is identity. Many women have built an entire identity around being needed. Being the strong one, being the helper, being the fixer, being the rescuer. The problem? If nobody needs rescuing, who are you then? That's the terrifying question underneath it all, because you identify it by building your identity around other people and saving other people. Because then healthy people can actually feel uncomfortable, right? You don't know where you fit in if this happens to you. When healthy people can actually feel uncomfortable. Does that make sense? Because if your identity is built around saving people, you can't feel comfortable if you cannot rescue them. Because that's your identity and you don't know where you fit in. And you know what? Another benefit is actually, it's almost like a swear word, control. If you can get everyone else sorted, maybe life would feel safer for you. Maybe you feel less anxious. Maybe everything feels predictable. Except life doesn't work that way, darling. People are messy. Humans are unpredictable. And no amount of fixing changes that. So the cost of fixing people. Now let's talk about the real price here, because it is enormous. The first cost is exhaustion. You cannot carry multiple adults and remain energized. It is impossible. You become mentally tired, emotionally tired, physically tired, and spiritually tired because you are carrying emotional loads that were never yours to carry. The second cost is a biggie. It is resentment. And this one is huge. You give, you help, you support, you sacrifice, and then eventually you become angry. You wonder why nobody appreciates you, why nobody helps you, why nobody sees what you are doing. But there's a very uncomfortable truth. Many times they never asked for your help. You volunteered. You stepped in. You took over. And now you're angry because they didn't carry responsibilities you never allowed them to carry. And the third cost is you lose yourself. And this is the big one. You become so focused on everyone else's lives that your own life disappears. Your dreams disappear, goals disappears, and your needs disappear. and your happiness disappears. Years pass, decades pass, and suddenly you realize, I know exactly what everybody else wants, but I don't know what I want. So why fixing often stops people from growing? Here's something that changed my life. Helping isn't always helping. Sometimes helping is hurting. Think about that. When we constantly rescue people from consequences, we rob them of growth. People learn from consequences. They learn through discomfort. They learn through mistakes. They learn through accountability. But when we jump in every time, they don't have to. We become the buffer, the safety net, the solution. And ironically, the more we rescue them, the less capable they become. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is actually to step back, not because you don't care, but because you do. You do care. Because you believe they can figure it out, because you respect their ability to learn, and because you trust their journey. And that brings me to another section, how mothering your partner kills your sex life. I want to talk about something that nobody tells us, and it might make some people uncomfortable. But we need to talk about it because I've seen it happen over and over again. The moment you become your partner's mother, you stop becoming his lover or her lover. Let me say that again. The moment you become his or her mother, you stop becoming their lover. And here's why. Sexual attraction requires polarity. It requires two adults standing side by side, two capable people, two equals, two people taking responsibility for themselves. But one person starts taking an responsibility and acting like the parent. The dynamic in the relationship changes completely. You start reminding him or her about appointments, paying attention to things he or she should be managing, organizing his or her life, managing his or her emotions, fixing their mistakes, carrying the mental load for them, solving problems before they even notice them. And before long, you're no longer their partner. You are their manager, his or hers administrator, and his unpaid personal assistant or their emotional support department. And then women come to me and say, Irene, I don't understand why I don't want sex anymore. Well, hello, because you're exhausted and because deep down, you don't want to sleep with someone you started parenting and they don't want to sleep with their mother. Think about it. When you look at your partner, do you see a capable adult or do you see another responsibility? Because those create very different feelings, right? Desire grows in respect. Attraction grows in admiration. And passion grows when you see another person standing strongly in their own life. But when you are constantly picking up after someone, rescuing, managing, correcting, the respect starts to disappear. And where respect goes, desire often follows. Now, before anyone gets upset, this isn't about blaming the other person. We all do it, men or women. Many men would happily take responsibility for more if we stopped taking responsibility for everything. But somewhere along the way, many women start carrying things nobody asked them to carry. And then they become frustrated, resentful, exhausted, and completely disconnected from their feminine energy. Because there's no space left. Everything is responsibility. Everything is management. Everything is work. Nothing feels playful anymore. nothing feels exciting and nothing feels romantic. It's hard to feel desire when you're mentally running on household stamina, managing finances, solving everybody's problems, worrying about everybody's future, and carrying the emotional weight of the relationship. That, my friend, is not sexy. That's a job description. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is actually, have I become my partner's partner, or have I become his mother? And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, please don't judge yourself. Just notice it, because awareness creates change. Sometimes the sex life isn't dying because you've been together for 20 years. Sometimes it's dying because one person has stopped being an equal adult in the relationship. And the solution isn't necessarily more date nights. The solution may be restoring responsibility, restoring boundaries, restoring respect, and restoring adulthood. Because the healthiest relationships are not built on rescue, they're built on partnership. Two people walking beside each other, not one dragging the other along. And when that happens, something beautiful often returns. And that would be admiration, respect, playfulness, and connection. And yes, desire, even desire, because lover needs equality. Mother and children need dependency. And those two dynamics cannot occupy the same space for very long. So I hope that really hit home with you, because what healthy support really looks like. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying stop caring. I'm not saying become cold. I'm not saying abandon people, because healthy support is beautiful. Healthy support says, I love you. I believe in you. I'm here for you. But healthy support does not say, I do it for you. Healthy support respects boundaries. Healthy support allows people to have their own experiences. Healthy support understands that another adult's happiness is not your responsibility. You cannot love someone deeply and take full responsibility for their lives. So you can only love someone deeply and still let them own their choices. You can support someone and still have boundaries. You can care without carrying. And that is the difference. So how do we stop losing ourselves and stop doing all this? Because if you spent years fixing people, this won't be an overnight change. But here are some powerful questions. When somebody brings you a problem, ask, did they ask for help? Or am I volunteering? Ask yourself, is this my responsibility? Or am I making it my responsibility? Now, ask yourself what happens if I do nothing. And perhaps the most important question, what am I neglecting in my own life while I focus on theirs? That question can change everything, because many women discover they have abandoned themselves. They have abandoned their dreams, their health, their business, their joy, their purpose, their future, while focusing on everyone else. So the shift that changes everything, it's simple, but not easy. Stop asking, how do I change them? And start asking, what do I need? Stop asking, how do I fix this person? And start asking, how do I care about me? How do I take care of myself? And I want you to stop asking, how do I make them happy? And you know what follows? And start asking yourself, am I happy? Because your life matters too. You know that, don't you? and your dreams matters vividly, big. Your future matters incredibly. And you deserve a life that isn't built entirely around managing other people. So if today's episode hit a nerve, good. Because sometimes the things that sting are the things we need to hear. Maybe you spent years carrying people, saving people, fixing people, managing people, worrying about people. Maybe you have become so focused on everybody else that you've forgotten about yourself. Today, I want you to remind yourself of something. You are not responsible for another adult's happiness. No. And you are not responsible for another adult's growth. And you are not responsible for another adult's choices. And you are not responsible for you. No, of course you are. Haha, tricked you. You are responsible for you. Your peace, your boundaries, your dreams, your future, your life. And perhaps the greatest act of love isn't fixing someone. Perhaps it's trusting them enough to find their own way. And perhaps the greatest act of self-love is finally coming home to yourself. Thank you for spending this time with me. And if you loved today's episode, please share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to stop living for everyone else and start creating your own life, come and join me inside the Secret to Women's Success community on Facebook. Until next time, remember, you're not here to rescue everybody else. You are here to become fully, unapologetically, magnificently you. Stay unstuck, stay effing fabulous, and I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend.